Hi students, today we are discussing the next creational design pattern that is nothing but prototype design pattern. It falls under the concept of object creational design pattern. Here in this prototype we need to study the what is the main intent, what does the pattern do, a start statement that tells us to you to create new objects by cloning or copying. Cloning is very similar to a copying. Okay, this pattern is used when object creation is very here. This pattern is used to create objects. Okay, it's the object creation operation is very costly. Okay, for example, I said to you, in a database MySQL, we need to store the details of some dog name and weight details. The Java application gets the dog details in the sense the dog name, the dog weight, name in the sense XYZ, and coming to the weight 10 kg. We need to create one new object like a dog. In this concept of the main intent of this prototype, in the sense the object we want to create n number of times we want to create a new objects. Okay, that will be a time will be saved. We have to create one object, we have to copy that 100 number of objects like dog 1, dog 2, dog 3, and so on up to a dog n. Okay, we need to create a more number of times we need to create object. That means we need to save the time and we need to save the computation also. In the sense the time and computation we need to save. Coming to for the real time example, one more example, if you need to have study about internet. In internet we need to download one movie. The user get downloaded one movie. For example, whatever your wish, you can take one movie. For example, Mr. Perfect, you have to take that movie. If you have to be downloaded 1 GB, just they take half an hour time for internet. Now in mobile phones they easy downloaded within a seconds also. But if you need some data mobile network, okay, but here we need to, the user have to downloaded one movie. The movie will share to your friends with the copying of pen drive and DVD, and one more we need to take like hard disk, anything you need to copying. Just we need to cloning the movie. One member can one object only we need to create. Our subject point of view, Java programming, we need to create one object. That object will creates, and so many number of times we need to create that object. Likewise, the user will download one movie and the user will send to the friends one movie to all. Only one movie, they create one object, and here the user will send the movie to all members. So the movie will just copying itself, just cloning itself, create some n number of objects by cloning or copying itself only. That is the main purpose and the main motto of this concept of prototype. Okay, now we need to study what the main intent here, in the sense just we need to specify what the kind of objects we need to create, and we are using a typical instance. Okay, what's the meaning of the prototype, in the sense exactly coming to the software, let us take software. We need some prototype, just that is nothing but just a virtual thing, just a virtual thing. It's not a real thing, we need to convert that is a real thing. Okay, here we need to create new objects by copying or cloning this prototype. This is the main intent of prototype. And coming to the motivation of this concept, what does the main motto, we need to see some a structural representation of that particular class and object scenario. At that time you need to, if you need to understand in a way, in a clear cut way, here we need to implement a template method or one framework, just like if you have to take as a graphic class for a graphical components and graphic tool class for we are handling the tools, and those we are creating some components in that. You could build an editor for customizing a general framework for the purpose of graphical editors, and we need to adding new objects whatever that represent the graphical editors like notes, rest and staves. So the editor framework may have a palette of some tools for we are adding these music objects to the score. So the palette would also include the tools for we are selecting, moving, and otherwise we need to manipulating. And this is how we can handling the music objects. So here the main users will click on the quarter note tool and it used to add some quarter notes to the score, or they can use to move the tools whatever to move a note up or down on the staff, thereby we are changing its pictures also. Let us see the main motivation if we have to take here. Actual graphical components. Here we need to take some actual graphical components, or it is a very it is very suitable for the application specific. Here how to parameterize these instances of a graphic tool, a graphic tool class with the type of objects we need to create. The solution is the best thing of the solution. We need to create new objects in graphic tool class by cloning, in the sense just by copying a prototype object instance. Let us look at this a prototype motivation here. Let's assume the framework provides an abstract graphic class. Look at this. Let us assume the framework. Here the framework we need to provide an abstract graphic class. Okay, for graphical components like notes and staves. Moreover, it will provide an abstract tool class for whatever we need to defining like those in the palettes. So the framework also predefines a graphic tool subclass for tools that creates instances of graphical objects, and we need to add them to the document also. Here look at this diagram, the graphic tool class, how the function here, the operation manipulate. We need to extend the graphic tool, rotate tool, graphic tool. Here the function is manipulate operation will be performed. The manipulate operation in graphic tool. So here they need to return some prototype. Just we are copying while the user drags mouse. Just the P prototype, it's draw some new positions. Let us you have to insert the P into a drawing. Just we need to copying. Let us look the prototype. The side diagram is graphic in the sense we need to draw the position, and then just we need to copying in the sense clone function. In that graphic class we need to take some two subclasses here, staff and musical note here. But graphic tool presents a problem to the framework designer. So here the classes for notes and staves are specific to our application, but the graphic tool class, it belongs to the framework. So a graphic tool does not know how to create instances of our music classes to add to the score. Here we could take subclass graphic tool for each kind of music object. let us they instantiate. We know the object composition is a flexible alternative to the subclassing. So the question is here, how can the framework we need to use it parameterize instances of a graphic tool by the class graphic. They are supposed to create whatever the solution here lies in making a graphic tool. Just we need to create a new graphic by copying or just cloning an instance of a graphic subclasses. So we call this instance a prototype. Okay ma. The graphic tool here is a parameterized by the prototype. Just it should clone, and we need to add the documents. If all graphic subclasses, we need to support a clone operation here. Now look at this, clone operation is there. Then the graphic tool can clone any kind of a graphic. So in our music editor, each tool for creating a music object is an instance of a graphic tool. Is an instance of a graphic tool that's initialized with a different prototype. So here each graphic tool instance will produce a music object just by copying its prototype, and we need to adding the cloning to the score. Okay, here we can use the prototype pattern also. Look at this, we need to reduce the number of classes. Even the further purpose also, we have to separate the classes for whole notes and half notes. Here look at the diagram here. We need to separate the classes for whole notes and half notes, but that's probably unnecessary, ma'am. Instead, there could be instances of the same class, whatever we need to initialize it with the different bitmaps and the duration. A tool for creating a whole notes becomes just a graphic tool, ma'am, whose prototype is a musical note initialized to be a whole note. So this can reduce the number of classes in the system drastically. So it also makes it very easier. We need to add a new kind of note to the music editor. Here just we need to return some copy of self. Okay, in the sense clone, the operation performs just a return copy of self. Okay, this is the main motivation of prototype. And coming to the applicability of prototype design pattern, let us see here. We need to study about here. We need to study here the applicability. What is the main usage of this prototype design pattern? Use the prototype design pattern when a system should be independent of how its products are created, composed and represented. What here the main use of prototype pattern? When we are taking a system, it should be independent how the products are to be created and composed and represented. So here when we are taking some classes, when the classes to be instantiate or specified at runtime, especially at runtime the classes are to be instantiated. For example, you are taking some dynamic loading. In the sense of dynamic loading or dynamic binding, just we are the classes when the classes to be instantiated specifically. Okay, and then we need to avoid building a class hierarchy. We need to avoid their class hierarchy. Whatever we need to building that we need to avoid that building a class hierarchy of factories. That should be a parallel the class hierarchy of products. So when we need to create a class, here the class is just instance it can have only a few different combinations of state, ma'am. So here it may be a more convenient to install a corresponding a number of prototypes, and just we need to clone them rather than instantiating the a class. Okay, here look at the furthermore point. Whenever the instances of a class can have one of only a few different combination of states, it may be a more convenient to install a corresponding number of prototypes, and just we need to copy them rather than instantiating the class manually. So each time with the suitable state we need to assume. What the last applicability says to you in the sense, just when we need to instantiate class, it have only some few different combinations of a particular state. Okay, it should be to install a corresponding number of prototypes. We need to create this pattern, some object creation. How the operation, just we need to clone it, just we need to instantiate in the class specifically in each time with the appropriate it's very suitable state. Okay, let us see the prototype structure. What here the prototype structure says to you in the sense, already we discussed we have to take a tool. In the sense, the tool will take here what we have to take here. Client is a class. The client should perform some operations. Okay, the prototype in the sense, just we are copying some function, just to return the operation p is equal to prototype 2 tends to a clone function. Just we need to copying the prototype clone. In clone this nothing but prototype. In the sense, just we have to take some graphic class at motivation purpose. Just we not to clone it, just we have to copying it. The subclass of prototype, concrete prototype 1 and concrete prototype 2, just we need to copying, in the sense a copy function, or we can say clone function, just it written a copy of itself. Okay, the structure representation of prototype design pattern. Coming to the participants here, just the prototype in figure we can see the prototype here. The class name is a prototype. Coming to the motivation section, in place of prototype we need to write some graphic class. Is just declares an interface. It just declares an interface for cloning itself only. And coming to the concrete prototype, in the sense we need to create some subclass here. Coming to the motivation figure, the graphic we need to some extend some staff and music note. Just here look at this structure, we need to create some subclass of concrete prototype 1, concrete prototype 2. The name here, concrete prototype staff comma whole note comma half note. Just in motivation we need to declare like names. What is the main meaning of this concrete prototype names? Just we need to implement an interface. Just we need to implement an interface for copying itself. And coming to the client section, client in the sense we need to take some graphic tool. It is also one type of a class. Graphic tool is a class. It creates a new objects just by copying or cloning itself. In the sense, just by asking a prototype to clone itself. Okay, these are the participants of related to the prototype design pattern. And coming to the collaboration in the sense how those classes and objects collaborate, and we need to carry out their particular responsibilities. What the collaboration, a client, let us assume that a client will ask a prototype, just we need to copy itself. In the sense, a client, the client asks a prototype to clone itself, Okay, this is the already I said to you motivation and prototype motivation, and what is the applicability of that. This is the structure representation, this is the participants, and finally we can discuss collaboration. Okay, in the next class we've seen what are the consequences and what are the implementation and what is the sample code and what are the known uses, and finally we discuss the related pattern of prototype design pattern. If you have any doubts, can you please contact me. Thank you.